What makes a great comic book script? I'm going to tell you. You might be a little bit surprised, but I'm going to tell you something right now. All great comic book writers are wonderful liars. Find out more on This Week in Talkin Comics. What's up, people? Patrick Hickey Jr. here, Editor-in-Chief of Legacy Comics, bringing you a special bonus episode of Talkin Comics. My kids are asleep. Wrestling is not quite over. I like to kind of sneak in towards the end and catch the finishes of some of the matches I'm looking forward to. If I don't catch it on DVR after, kind of tired, but figured, you know what? Let's do a bonus episode. Let's talk about great fiction writing. Let's talk about, in particular, great comic book writing. And let's talk about the trait that all great comic book writers have. And that is, they are wonderful, wonderful liars. So before we get into that, my name, again, is Patrick Hickey Jr. I'm the editor-in-chief of LegacyComics.com. I have over 17 years of journalism experience. I am the author of the Minds Behind the Games book series. There are 7 books in the series. They are in over 1,000 libraries worldwide, including Harvard, Yale, Stanford, UCLA, Berkeley, and the University of Shanghai. I am also the author of the Condry comic book series, Kroom, Brooklyn Bleeds, The Job, Dem Goals. I letter books for Legacy Comics. I edit all the books for Legacy Comics. I market the books. I promote them. Yeah, I love comic books. I love fiction writing. I love journalism. I have been a journalist for over 17 years. I have been published in the New York Times, the New York Daily News. I own my own entertainment website. I've interviewed tons and tons of comic book writers, including Chris Claremont, Garth Ennis, Mark Miller, David Gibbons, Steve Niles, Peter Hogan, John Arcudi. The list goes on and on. So, John Ostrander. I've interviewed tons and tons of great comic book artists and writers over my 17 years in journalism, and I think I've learned a lot from them. And I've just been really taking a deep dive into what makes so many characters so great. And I just, speaking to my class, one of my journalism classes, one of my literature classes this week, and trying to get them to read between the lines and find out why they like certain characters and why they don't. And the common thread that I feel like brings all of these great comic book characters and great fiction writers together is that the author tells one whopper of a lie, and we believe it. So now the question is, why do we believe the lie? We know there's no such thing as the Jedi. We know that there can't be one ring to rule them all, one ring to bind them. We know that there's no such thing as a T-1000. We know that there's no way that you could get bit by a radioactive spider or survive a nuclear bomb going off and the gamma rays and blah, blah, blah. We know these things. So why do we care so much about these characters? Why do we believe? And the answer is simple. All great writers, fiction writers, in addition to being wonderful liars, understand the truth. And they understand the human condition. They understand that humans have a penchant, a need to feel. And if you can tap into that and make a character as relatable as possible and center them and ground them in as much honesty and truth, then someone will eventually believe the lie. The question is, how big is your lie going to be? The question is, how thoughtful is your lie going to be? How big of a chance are you going to take with your lie? The bigger the chance, the harder it'll be to sway the reader, which means you have to work twice as hard in doing your research, in grounding that character, like I said, in reality. So what I wanted to do is like kind of take a look at a couple of characters throughout history in comic books. And as I crack my knuckles, I'm like preparing. I'm doing my CM Punk kind of, wrist turn. If you guys know who CM Punk is, pretty awesome. I hope he comes back. But that's a story for another day. I'm not going to go off topic. There's a bunch of podcasts that I really love that go off topic, and they start talking about the Lakers, and they start talking about music and this and that. I like to keep this like 20, 25 minutes and just try and stay as on topic as possible. Because you're geeky. And you don't have time to listen to me talk about other stuff. I'm doing it right now. I'm sorry. So, Spider-Man. What's the lie? The lie is that he was bitten by a radioactive spider and gained superpowers. That's a whopper. That's a pretty big lie. So how do we ground that? We've all experienced some type of loss in our lives. Peter Parker has suffered a tremendous amount of loss. So if you have a level of empathy, you immediately connect with Spider-Man. Just for that. The fact that he grew up without his parents. That connects a big part of society. Then, if you're middle class and money's an issue, if you guys read like the first, like the Steve Ditko, Stan Lee stuff, money was always like a big thing, Peter didn't know like how he was going to pay the rent. Aunt May, I don't know who was doing the accounting for the Parker family, but Aunt May was constantly running into money problems. It makes me think, like, did Aunt May have like a scratch-off ticket problem, or was she going to like OTB back in the day? Like, what was she doing with all of the Parker family money that Peter never had? That Peter like always had to do these things to make money, But anyway, that's relatable. Middle class, loss. You're connecting a huge cross-section of people right there. Then, Peter is awful with women. There you go. That's 100% of... that's 100% of men and 101% of women. Because women are terrible with women and men are absolutely terrible with women. So now Peter is relatable for that reason. Now, Peter is being bullied. Everyone's been bullied. Everybody. Peter is also diminutive in size, and he's not extremely athletic, and he's slightly nerdy, and he doesn't have many friends. Okay. So do you see what Stan Lee and Steve Ditko just did right there? They found so many million different reasons for you to connect to this character that you may not connect with him for one or two of them, but there's definitely going to be at least 3 out of like the 6 or 7 that I've mentioned. So now you're along for the ride because now you have found Peter to be a relatable character and you're rooting for him. So now that he's been bit by the spider and he's climbing up walls and he's doing this, it's cool. Because now you're on Team Peter and Peter can do no wrong. And now we have a character that has lived on for 60 years. Because of that. Because Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were wonderful, wonderful liars. But they understood human beings. So that's a Marvel character. Let's do a DC character. Let's do Batman. Same exact reasons. Batman lost his parents. Immediate connection. Batman is rich. How do people connect with being rich? They don't, but they want to be rich. Why do people watch reality TV? Because they want to be like the people they watch on reality TV. So sometimes you don't have to connect with the person because you have something in common with them. You can connect with them because they live a completely opposite life from you and you want to be like them. I like to call that like the boy band effect. There's a reason why you know the words to every single Backstreet Boy song. It's because the girls did. And you wanted to get the girls. There's a reason why I had long blonde hair in a bowl cut back in the day. Because Nick Carter was the guy that all the women liked in the late 90s. And that's what I was going for. I had long blonde hair, blue eyes. Let's do that. Show me the meaning of being lonely. Let's do it. So Batman taps in another area, and you don't have to be exactly like the person, but you could have something that they don't have that they want. And that's money. At the same token, though, Batman has no superpowers. Batman gets his ass handed to him. Pardon my French. Now it's going to be explicit on Spotify. Wonderful. Batman gets his ass kicked I said it again. Every single time he gets in a fight. No fight is ever easy for him. He's got to think his way out. People respect that. He's scrappy. It's one of the reasons why, Superman is a hard character to write. Because he's like perfect. You know, he embodies like perfection. He has all these powers, all this strength. Like, thank God for kryptonite. That's his only weakness, you know? But it's just like, it's hard to get super imaginative with a character like that. So, Batman has a ton of money, but he fights like a blue-collar dude. So now you've got all these blue-collar kids from the city wanting to read Batman because it takes place in the grungy city, and this dude fights just like they do in the schoolyard. See what they did there? See what they did there? So you can use similarities to your characters to draw a connection to them. You can use differences. But again, it goes into the lie. What's the lie with Batman? There's a bunch of them. I don't know if there's a huge risk, but his parents dying and him never being able to find out who, and him going on this like nightly quest to find out who killed his father and his mother is a little ridiculous to me. Think of it. What do they call it? They're detective comics. DC Comics, Detective Comics. Batman, Detective Comics. He's the world's greatest detective. He has a way to basically off every member of the Justice League, but he hasn't been able to find out who killed his parents. Yeah, that's ridiculous. But the thought that this man could be so fueled by that he can sacrifice his entire existence, essentially, to being this vigilante of the night, this Caped Crusader, this Gotham Knight, so to speak, that's the lie. That we'll never find out who really killed his parents. It's a whopper. It's not as big a risk because comics were born differently in the 40s. Notice like Spider-Man, Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, they took a bigger risk than Batman did. People, their sensibilities were different in the 60s. They demanded more of their superheroes in the 60s than they did in the 40s. 40s, a great costume would kind of like really set the tone, and Batman has an amazing costume. Spider-Man has an amazing costume too. To me, it's like one of the greatest ever. But Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were better liars than pretty much everyone at DC at that time in the 40s. But 20 years had gone by, so you can't hold it against them. So we got Marvel, we got DC. You guys want to do an Image character? We could totally do an Image character. Do Spawn. This whole heaven and hell thing. This whole, the Spawn powers. Spawn's power base is ridiculous. It's just like, have you guys read the article where it said that like Spawn could basically kill Superman? Read the article. It's online. Google it. Can Spawn kill Superman? Spawn's skill set, his power set, is insanely powerful. Insanely powerful. And it all goes back to like a woman. That's almost like the lie that somebody would be willing to sacrifice everything for one person. It's almost biblical when you think about it, Tom McFarlane told a ton of lies when he was putting that story together. But the thing that's different about Spawn is extremely different from Batman, and it's extremely different from Spider-Man in the fact that, like, Spider-Man is character building, Batman is character building. Even the Rogues Gallery in Batman is character building. Spawn, you've got Cygor, you've got Violator, you've got a Rogues Gallery. And even like Spawn's backstory and Al's backstory is, it's drawn out, you find out more and stuff like that. But it's just like, it's more like world building because there's so much going on, like, behind the scenes and, like, to make everything work. So, and it's the art. I mean, let's be totally honest. I mean, I'm pretty sure I listened to the Rob Liefeld podcast once, and he was reading a Todd McFarlane interview, and the interviewer said, "What do you read?" And he's like, "I read the sports pages." So Todd McFarlane isn't exactly going to, like, Alexandre Dumas for motivation, for inspiration, but he casts a character that's broken and that is scary and grungy and just beautifully rendered and totally captures the essence of, like, what made characters like Spider-Man and Venom so beautiful, and Batman, absolutely Batman, to look at. So again, sometimes you can use aesthetics to help tell your story, and that's why, like, I think I tell people this all the time, man. Oh, if I could draw, I'd be a millionaire. I try and think as visual as possible when I'm writing a script, but it's just like, if you're somebody that, like Todd McFarlane, that can write and draw, sometimes your lies come in your art, because, like, there's no such thing as, like, a cape. There's no way aerodynamically that, like, a cape could work the way Spawn's does, or Doctor Strange's does, or Batman's does. And there's no way to write that cape as a character, but you could do it through art. You can absolutely do it through art. So Todd McFarlane is able to build a world and then use his art to lie, which is pretty crazy, So we mentioned Marvel, DC, Dark Horse. There's stuff like this going on way before comics, though, too. I mentioned Alexandre Dumas, the Count of Monte Cristo. You're rooting for Edmond throughout the entire thing. What's the lie? The lie is that, like, this guy has this elaborate plan, and everything goes exactly as planned, pretty much, except for, obviously, his old lady finding out that he's still alive and blah, 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 blah. But, like, pretty much every single one of his schemes to get revenge works out. It, like, builds into, like, this amazing climax. But the thing is, the story is rooted so well in realism that we know that Napoleon Bonaparte can't be trusted. And we know that the French political system is corrupt. And we know that Fernand is jealous, and we've all had friends that were jealous of us, and we've all I hope I really do, I hope that you've experienced a love like the love that powers the Count of Monte Cristo. So it's just like, when you tie all of those things together, again, Alexandre Dumas, wonderful liar, but at the same time, somebody that does their research, understands the way the political system in France works at the time. Someone that understands people. If you're writing Batman and you don't understand the chain of custody and you don't understand the way the police system works, you're not going to be able to write an effective Batman story. Batman speaks like a police officer. He speaks like a detective. You've got to listen to detectives speak. You've got to watch crime drama. You've got to read a lot of hard-boiled noir. So research goes into that. Listen, I read scripts all the time. People send me scripts all the time. I mean, we've been doing this legacy thing now for like a year and a half, and I've easily had like 50 to 60 scripts sent to me. And a lot of the times I'm asking myself this question: what is this person lying about? What's the lie? What's the catch? What's the thing that's going to draw me in? But what is this writer doing to convince me of this lie? And the thing is, when people write fiction, they think they could just write whatever comes off the top of their head. And I think it helps that I have a background in journalism, and that journalism is incredibly selfless, good journalism. let me rephrase that. Good journalism is incredibly selfless, and you have to take an interest in the people that you're interviewing, and you have to learn about them, and you have to ask the right questions at the right time, and you have to study them, and you have to watch them, and you have to understand protocol and the law and practice and all of those things. You have to understand all of those things. So it makes you easily adaptable. You have to be able to like go into a courtroom and understand like when the plaintiff is talking and the defendant's talking, what overruled means and objection means, and and you have to understand terminology and jargon across the political scheme, the legal scheme, sports, the entire, you have to know that like in one situation ERA could mean equal rights amendment, but in another it could mean earned run average. You have to be able to know when one person means which. When you write fiction, you can use all of that, and you can use that selflessness to really help build a world that is real, that feels real, and characters that speak real, that feel real. I told you guys a story before in another podcast where, I produced an interview with Chris Claremont, and I'm behind the camera, and my journalist, my interviewer, is doing the interview that we prepared her for, we prepared the questions for, and Chris is talking about Logan, Scott, and Jean, and not saying Wolverine, Phoenix and Cyclops. Why? Because those characters are real to him. It doesn't matter that one shoots optic blasts out of his eyes. It doesn't matter that one has telekinetic powers. And it certainly doesn't matter that the other one has an adamantium skeleton. They are real to him. They feel real to him. And they sound real to us. So therefore, they are real. Comic book readers have a wonderful way of just connecting with characters. And it's because the writers do wonderful things and they make these characters people and things that we want to connect to. I mean, I love Rocket Raccoon. And I know he doesn't exist. But I'd really like him to. So, again, if you're a writer that's interested in writing comics, I hope you were able to take something from this. If you're a reader that reads a lot of comic books and now you're thinking a little bit differently about comic books, that was kind of like the point of all of this bonus episode. It's like, if we're talking about legacy books, Condry, if you've read all of Condry, he's got a physical disorder with his pituitary gland that certainly exists in real life. I've just altered it a bit, and we're adding backstory to that and blah, 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 blah. But it's just like hours upon hours of reading to kind of scientifically prove that this could absolutely, happen in some instances. Not obviously to the effect that it happens to Condry, but that it's not completely made up. It's grounded in some type of reality. And then it takes place in dirty, disgusting Brooklyn. And guess what? I live in dirty, disgusting Brooklyn, and there's police officers involved, and I'm well aware of how the police do their business. I've covered crime in New York City before. And there's people that have suffered loss. I've suffered my share of loss. And there's people of all different shapes, sizes, and races in my story because I live in Brooklyn and I've been friends. I've loved and lost people of all different shapes, ages, religions, racial denominations, genders, and that's a part of the story. The job is about wrestling. I love wrestling. I've covered pro wrestling for, 17 years. It's about people that commit crimes because society won't give them the opportunities that they feel they deserve. I know people that have done those things. And I've watched so many films about things like that. And I've read books about people that have gone through similar things. So again, the lie comes from the research. The better you are prepared to lie, the easier it is for you to lie. The more you will lie, the better you will lie. And we're talking about writing here, not people. I hope you guys understand that. But as a writer, I'll tell you, do as much research as you possibly can. Encompass yourself with all the things that you love, and then go out and tell one hell of a lie. And then try and ground that character with as much love, passion, feeling as you possibly can. So, hope to see you guys soon. Got like 3 episodes that are already in the hopper. It's going to be a lot of fun. In the meantime, feel free to like us and subscribe on Spotify, on Anchor. Go, like I said, legacycomics.com. We've got a whole bunch of great new books out. Check us out. We're not going anywhere. We're here to stay. Until next time.